I must tell you that a few years ago, I fell in love with a Palestinian poet, literally. His name is Mouroud Bogati. And Mouroud Bogati says, if you want to dispossess a people, you simply start their stories with secondly. He said if you start the stories about Native American Indians with secondly, you would get a group of barbarians. And oftentimes that's what happens to the nanny community. Their stories are often narrated with secondly. I want to tell you that there's so much more, that they impact societies not just in New York, not just in America, but they are the greater extension to financial and economic stabilities in the Caribbean. We know that because on a Friday evening, they had Western Union sending money over to Guyana, sending to Barbados, sending to Jamaica. And so they do not only help shape the American society, they help shape the general society, those of Nepal, those of Indonesia, of Ukraine. And if only we would view them with greater lenses, we will see how impactful these women are. You see, yesterday I had an interview with a television station and network, and I said to them that perhaps if we started stories about nannies, apart from using secondly, for example, first-hand stories that they are the first teachers. You see, 14 years ago when I came to America, I landed in the home of a gay couple. What irony. I'm coming from a small conservative society like St. Lucia, being raised as a Christian, and there I am in the home of a gay couple taking care of their twin boy and girl. I often joke that God has such a sense of humor. And I look at everything that happened in my life as teachable moments. And so I recognized that I was about to teach them about the power of love. Love that says to have a heart that's open to all things and be attached to nothing, to respect even that which is perceived to be different. And after serving, and I love that word, by the way, serving, because we are all called to be servants, sisters and brothers. After serving this family for almost 8 years, I still have a great relationship with them, and they still tell me, what about you that's so different? You see, the spirit that's within me that's greater than who I am is what makes me different. It's taking every day a posture of humility. It is to say that we are going to fight for those that are voiceless, like my nanny sisters. It's to say that we're going to redefine their stories and tell their stories in such a way from a place of truth. Because again, oftentimes their stories does not have truth. Oftentimes we begin to hear their stories and we hear it, sometimes the things that I hear, it puts me on my knees, because that's where I get my strength, when I'm on my knees. So telling you my story, I went on to study psychology because I wanted to see why do we behave the way we behave, what drives us to do the things that we do. And in many ways, I wanted to answer my own call. Why did my parents leave me behind? You see, so many of you have things in your lives that you still have questions about, that you still have conflicts. Unless you deal with that conflict, you cannot move forward. So recognize the conflict. Sometimes they have things to teach. So I now run a nanny organization, and the organization is called My Nanny Circle. We have 16,000 members that visit our my blog or my YouTube channel or podcast, whatever way I can connect with them. And the message for us is to concede. Is to say that perhaps when great changes can take place or will take place or have taken place is when we as a people make concession and say perhaps we have not done everything right, and begin to tie our loins and girdle everything really tight and say we have work to do. So I usher in a call to these women to arise. You see, last week I had 136 of them in a room, and I simply said to them to arise to the challenges of the 21st century nanny. To stop sitting on their nest. You see, sometimes we get too comfortable. We get stuck in our own rut. And our centerpieces were birds' nests with eggs in there, because I wanted to give them a visual. To tell them that so many times our eggs go bad because we become complacent. We do not know when the time is right to get up, and we are again too comfortable in our own comfort zone. And to recognize when it is time to arise. So the call last week was to arise women. Arise to the challenges. Arise with humility. Arise knowing that when the wind is beneath your wings, that when you feel like you have anchored and you have soared, to not forget to take another sister with you. It is dangerous. It is dangerous that if you have reason to not allow one an opportunity to rise too. I often think, what good is it for me to be able to dine well while my sister struggles? What good is it for me to be able to say that I am doing well while my sister struggles? That is not the law of the universe. That is not the law of the one who created us. It goes against the grain and the construct of who we are as God's people. So when we arise, when we are able to find our own voice and our own anchor, we need to be that anchor and that voice for the less fortunate. You see, so many a times women are not able to rise because we could be also very dangerous. We can be so destructive to each other. And perhaps if we left here and said to another woman, sister, I can help you rise. Sister, I can help you achieve your God-given talents. Or perhaps, sister, I recognize your talent. I can help you. Perhaps our world would be a better place. Perhaps minority women would do better. You see, we have been fed a notion, a phenomenon, something called the crab in the barrel mentality. And oftentimes the crabs cannot escape the barrels because one constantly pulls the other down. If we dispel that notion, if we help rise somebody else, and if the crabs realized that they needed to push each other up, then they all would escape the barrel. What good is it when we are in the abyss of a barrel? Or what good is it when you're sitting on a pedestal while you know your sisters are still in the barrel? Nothing. So I implore you today to help somebody else. Help start a different conversation. I implore you today to go out and maybe during the conversation this week to speak about nannies. I implore you today to recognize them as individuals, as movers and shakers in our society. I implore you today to recognize that we have our innate ability to be and do anything that we want to be. And lastly, I'll conclude with that end of my own story. You see, the child at 9 years old who simply loved to write, today I've written 4 books. And I tell you that to tell you that you too have a capacity to do anything that you want to do, to use what was meant to destroy you as something to build you. You see, the woman, the child back then that was so scared, decided to study psychology, and it's my hope that one day I'll be a psychologist. To be able to travel the corridors of the Caribbean and to find out all these little children that have been left behind. I call them barrel babies. And to begin a healthy conversation. You see, so many times we forget that there's such gross atrocities that happen to children. I have been able to resolve my own conflict. It was last night I said to God while driving from class that, God, all this time you were the mother in the motherless, and you were the father in the fatherless. But think about it, that there's some people that are not able to see life that way. And so perhaps if we look at our unique circumstances, we all in here have unique challenges. If we're able to face it, and sometimes we have to say, you're about to devour me. We concede. But oftentimes I say, that which is greater than I am will devour you. For the battle is not mine. The battle belongs to a divinity that is greater than I am. And every single day he challenges me to be at a posture of complete humility. It has nothing to do with the way you look, the way you dress, your size, who you are, what group you belong to, your socio-economic status. At the end of the day, it means nothing if you cannot connect with somebody on a human level. At the end of the day, if you cannot help somebody,
I think I'm going to have